I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. 10 years ago, my own family disowned me. They didn't say it outright, but their message was loud and clear. I was the disappointment, the one who didn't fit into their picture-perfect image. Back then, I was the ugly graduate, the daughter who ruined every family photo, the one people whispered about at events. My younger sister, Emily, was the golden child. Blonde hair, bright blue eyes, flawless smile. She was the princess, while I, Anna, was the girl with acne, braces, and thick glasses. My mother used to sigh at me across the dinner table and say, "Anna, you should at least try to look presentable," as if my skin, my crooked teeth, my very existence was a personal failure. My father barely looked at me at all. The night everything changed was my high school graduation. I overheard my dad on the phone with a business associate. He was bragging about Emily, calling her the family jewel, the perfect reflection of our brand. And then he laughed and added, "Our older one, well, let's just say she didn't get the good genes. An ugly graduate doesn't look great for business." Those words sliced into me like knives. I wanted to believe I misheard, but I knew I hadn't. The next morning, I confronted them, shaking with tears. My dad didn't even deny it. He looked me in the eye and said, "You don't fit into our plans, Anna. Emily is the face of this family. You're not." My mom stood beside him, silent, nodding. That night, I packed a bag and left. No one called. No one asked me back. Weeks later, I learned through a cousin that they rewrote the family will and erased me like I had never existed. That was the last time I saw them, until Emily's wedding.
10 years passed before I saw their faces again. 10 years of silence, of rebuilding my life brick by brick without a single word from them. And then, out of nowhere, an invitation arrived. A thick ivory envelope with golden letters, addressed to me in perfect cursive. The union of Emily Carter and Daniel Hughes. I stared at it for a long time in my office, my fingers tracing the embossed letters. Emily, the perfect daughter, was marrying the son of a wealthy real estate mogul. Of course she was. It felt like the universe's cruel joke. Why now? Why invite me after pretending I didn't exist for a decade? Did they expect me to show up and smile like nothing happened? For days, the envelope sat untouched on my desk. My employees probably thought it was some kind of contract or proposal I was too busy to look at. In reality, it was a ghost, a reminder of the people who threw me away. I considered ignoring it. God knows they wouldn't miss me. But then another thought took hold. I had spent 10 years building a new life. The acne had cleared, the braces were gone. The shy girl with slouched shoulders and thick glasses had transformed into a woman who walked into boardrooms with confidence. I had founded my own financial consulting firm, one that, ironically, advised several of my father's competitors. I had turned my pain into fuel. So maybe it wasn't about reconciliation. Maybe it wasn't even about Emily. Maybe this was about justice, about standing in front of them again and letting them see what I had become, not thanks to them, but despite them. When I finally RSVP'd, I wrote just 2 words: "I'll attend." The wedding was held in one of the city's most luxurious hotels, the kind of place with crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and staff that seemed trained to smile on command. As I stepped through the revolving glass doors in a fitted red dress, I felt dozens of eyes turn toward me. Nobody recognized me, not even distant relatives I had once seen every holiday. To them, I wasn't Anna, the awkward, ugly duckling they'd discarded. I was a stranger, elegant, confident, untouchable. I caught a glimpse of Emily in her gown as photographers swarmed her. She looked radiant, of course. She had always been the star of the show. Daniel, her groom, stood beside her, handsome in a tailored tux, his hand resting on the small of her back. My parents were nearby, surrounded by important guests, laughing that hollow laugh I remembered so well. They looked older, grayer, but their expressions hadn't changed, still carrying that air of superiority, as if the world revolved around them. Nobody approached me at first. People whispered, curious about the mysterious woman walking with such confidence. I could feel the tension thickening in the air when Emily finally spotted me. Her eyes widened in shock, and for a split second, her smile faltered. When I reached the head table, Daniel turned to his bride with confusion. "Do you know her?" he asked, tilting his head toward me. Emily froze, her lips parting, but no words came out. I smiled, holding her gaze, savoring the silence stretching between us. "More than you think," I said calmly. Then I looked straight at Daniel. "I'm her older sister." The color drained from Emily's face. Around us, conversations hushed. My parents, catching sight of me, stiffened instantly. The stage was set. For a moment, the entire reception hall seemed frozen. Daniel blinked, clearly taken aback. "Sister?" he repeated, looking from me to Emily. "You never mentioned you had a sister." Emily's lips trembled as she tried to form words. It's complicated," she stammered, her voice barely audible. Her perfect bridal glow was cracking, and I could see the panic in her eyes. And then, like clockwork, my parents appeared. My father was the first to speak. His smile stretched so tight it looked painful. "Anna," he said, as if testing the name in his mouth for the first time in years. "What a surprise. We didn't know if you'd come." His voice had that same controlled tone I remembered from his business meetings, the one he used when a deal wasn't going as planned. My mother stepped forward and gave me a stiff, mechanical hug. "You look different," she muttered, scanning me up and down, her eyes betraying the shock she tried to mask. She hadn't expected me to grow into myself, hadn't expected me to stand here looking every bit as polished and put together as the daughter she once worshipped. I smiled politely. 10 years can change a person, I said, my voice steady, especially when they're forced to rebuild their life from scratch. Emily shot me a pleading glance, silently begging me not to make a scene. Daniel, still visibly confused, tried to break the tension. He extended a hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Anna. I had no idea Emily had a sister." I shook his hand firmly. "There are a lot of things about this family you don't know, Daniel," I said with a calm smile. The silence around us grew heavier, and I could feel my father's jaw tighten. He leaned in slightly, his eyes sharp. "This isn't the time or place, Anna. It's your sister's special day." I tilted my head, my smile never fading. "Of course, I wouldn't dream of ruining another family celebration. One was enough. Remember my graduation?" The flicker in his eyes told me he remembered every word. The music softened as the reception flowed into casual conversation, but the tension between us hung thick in the air. Emily kept glancing nervously at me, her perfect smile plastered on for the guests while her eyes silently begged me not to expose her secrets. My father, on the other hand, leaned closer, his voice dropping so only I could hear. "You've made your point. Now sit quietly, enjoy the meal, and don't embarrass us." I met his stare, unflinching. "Embarrass you? Funny, I thought you managed that all by yourselves 10 years ago when you decided your daughter was too ugly to exist in your family." His jaw tightened, the muscle twitching with contained anger. "Not here, not now." My mother, standing at his side, gave me that same stiff smile she had perfected over years of keeping up appearances. "Anna, please, this is Emily's night." I tilted my head slightly, my voice calm but cutting. "Don't worry, Mom. I wouldn't dare ruin another family event. I had enough of that at my graduation, remember?" Emily paled, and for a split second I saw pure fear flicker in her eyes. Daniel, still lost in confusion, looked at all of us like he had just walked into a play halfway through the performance and couldn't follow the plot.
"What's going on?" he pressed, his voice firmer now. "Why do I feel like everyone here knows something I don't?" I smiled sweetly, stepping back just enough to let them stew in their own panic. "There are a lot of family stories, Daniel, some of them better told at the right moment." Around us, the murmurs of nearby guests were growing. I could tell people were starting to sense the cracks in the Carter family's perfect facade. And I wasn't done yet.
Dinner was served, and I quickly realized my parents had arranged the seating chart with precision. Or maybe manipulation. Instead of placing me near Emily and Daniel, they had tucked me away at a far corner table with distant cousins and acquaintances I barely recognized. It was a strategic move, I knew. Keep me out of the spotlight, away from the most influential guests, away from Daniel's powerful family. But no matter where they placed me, I wasn't invisible anymore. I noticed the glances, the murmurs. People were curious about who I was and why Emily looked so rattled when I appeared. My parents' efforts to bury me in the background only made me more intriguing. Halfway through the meal, I felt someone's presence beside me. "Impressive entrance," a smooth male voice said. I turned and found myself looking at a tall man in a dark suit, his dark eyes sharp with curiosity. He offered me a champagne flute. "Gabriel Scott," he introduced himself, Daniel's business partner. "I'm Anna Carter," I replied, accepting the glass. "Carter," he repeated, raising an eyebrow. "So you're related to the bride?" I smiled wryly. "Her older sister, the one nobody ever talks about." Gabriel studied me for a moment, then smirked. "That explains the reaction I saw at the head table. Your family didn't look thrilled to see you." "Thrilled?" I laughed softly. "That's one word for it." Before we could continue, the master of ceremonies called everyone's attention. Emily and Daniel were preparing for their first dance. Guests gathered around the floor, and the music swelled. I stayed back, watching my sister twirl in her designer gown, basking in the spotlight. She was radiant, adored, the star of the show, as always. But this time, she wasn't the only story in the room. When the first dance ended, applause filled the hall. But my eyes weren't on Emily and Daniel. They were on my parents, who were doing everything possible to keep me at arm's length. I noticed how my father subtly redirected conversations whenever I drifted too close to Michael Hughes, Daniel's father, the powerful real estate magnate. It was almost amusing, watching him scramble to contain a situation he never thought he'd have to face. I wasn't planning to cause a scene, not yet, but I wanted them to sweat. The master of ceremonies soon invited family and friends to share words for the bride and groom. My father stood up, glass raised, and launched into the performance I knew by heart. "My daughter Emily has always been our pride, the epitome of grace, beauty, and intelligence." He went on with practiced charm, painting her as flawless, the perfect representation of the Carter family values. Every word was a dagger, not because it hurt now, but because I remembered the sting of hearing the opposite about myself. When the applause ended, the MC asked if anyone else wished to speak. Before my parents could stop me, I rose. A hush fell instantly over our table. Emily's eyes widened in horror, my father's jaw clenched, and my mother's hand shot out as if to grab my arm, but it was too late. I stepped toward the microphone with measured calm. "Good evening, everyone," I began, smiling at the curious faces turned my way. "My name is Anna Carter, Emily's older sister." A ripple of surprise passed through the crowd. Murmurs spread. "Older sister? Emily has a sister? Why hasn't she ever mentioned her?" I let the silence hang, savoring the discomfort radiating from my parents. Then I continued, my voice steady. "It's been a while since I've attended a family gathering. Let's just say I've been busy building my own life. But seeing Emily here tonight, radiant as ever, I realized something." I turned toward Daniel, meeting his eyes directly. "She's always been the family star. And you, Daniel, I truly hope you're ready for everything that comes with being part of this family."
Polite applause followed, but the unease was unmistakable. I walked back to my table slowly, leaving my family pale and shaken. The cracks were no longer hidden. They were splitting wide open.
I hadn't even sat down before I felt a hand on my shoulder. Daniel. His polite smile was gone, replaced by something sharper. Suspicion mixed with curiosity. "Anna, can we talk for a minute?" he asked quietly, but firmly enough that it didn't sound like a request. We slipped away from the crowd to a corner near the bar, out of earshot. He didn't waste time. "So, Emily has a sister. Why has she never mentioned you?" I studied his face. He seemed genuinely blindsided, like this wasn't some orchestrated cover-up on his end. "Families are complicated," I said finally, swirling the champagne in my glass. "Especially mine. Let's just say I didn't meet their standards." "Standards?" Daniel frowned. I leaned in slightly. My father decided I wasn't attractive enough to represent the Carter family. Acne, braces, glasses, teenage imperfections. To him, I was an embarrassment. Emily was the jewel, the perfect face for his empire. And me? I was erased. Daniel blinked, disbelief flickering across his face. "They kicked you out because of how you looked?" "More or less," I replied evenly. "He even called me the ugly graduate. I overheard him say it on the night of my high school graduation." Daniel shook his head slowly, as if trying to process. "That's insane. He stopped himself, lowering his voice. "Emily never said anything. Not even once." "Of course she didn't," I said, my tone calm but edged. "She was always the star, the one who benefited from my absence. Why would she bring me up? To ruin her perfect narrative?" I saw his jaw tighten, a storm brewing behind his eyes. Before he could respond, Emily appeared, her smile brittle as glass. "Daniel, there you are. The photographer's looking for us." Her eyes flicked at me, sharp and accusing. Daniel hesitated, then looked back at me. "We're not done," he said quietly. And in that moment, I knew I had planted the first seed of doubt.
As soon as Daniel walked off with the photographer, Emily rounded on me. Her smile vanished the second his back was turned. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she hissed, her voice low but sharp. I sipped my champagne slowly, savoring her panic. Having a civilized conversation with my new brother-in-law, introductions. Isn't that what weddings are for? Her eyes narrowed, the sparkle of bridal bliss gone. "You come here after 10 years of silence just to ruin my wedding." "Ruin it?" I laughed softly, though there was no humor in it. "No, Emily, I didn't ruin anything. I'm just reminding people that your perfect little family has a few missing chapters in its story." She crossed her arms, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. "You left. Nobody forced you out. You chose to disappear." "Is that how you've been telling it?" I asked, tilting my head. "Funny. I remember it differently. I remember Dad telling me I wasn't fit to be part of this family. I remember Mom nodding silently beside him. I remember packing my bags because I had no other choice. That's not leaving, Emily. That's being pushed out." For a moment, she looked away, her jaw tightening. Then she snapped back, her eyes flashing. "You were always jealous of me, my looks, my popularity, the attention I got. That's what this is about, isn't it? You can't stand that I'm happy." The accusation stung, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "Jealous? No, Emily. I didn't want your beauty or your popularity. I wanted a family that didn't see me as a blemish on their perfect image. I wanted parents who valued me for who I was, not how I looked. But that was too much to ask, wasn't it? Her mouth opened as if to respond, but before she could, I stepped back, smiling. Relax, Emily. I'm not here to destroy your big day. I'm just here to make sure you remember the truth you've buried for 10 years. And judging by the way her hands trembled as she clutched her bouquet tighter, I knew I had hit my mark.
I didn't have long to savor Emily's silence. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my parents approaching. My father's face was taut, his polite mask starting to crack, while my mother wore that same empty smile she always used when trying to keep up appearances. "Anna," my father said tightly, his tone a warning disguised as warmth, "may I have a word?" "Of course," I replied sweetly, as if we were just catching up after years apart, though I think you and I had all our words 10 years ago. His eyes flickered with anger, but he lowered his voice, leaning close so only I could hear. "Enough. You've made your little entrance, but this is Emily's night. If you care about your sister at all, you'll stop this nonsense before you embarrass us further." I tilted my head, feigning innocence. "Embarrass you? I haven't even started, Dad." My mother quickly stepped in, her hand brushing my arm in a rehearsed gesture of affection. "Anna, darling, you've surprised us all. You look so changed. Let's not dig up the past here. Tonight is about family." "Family," I repeated softly, meeting her eyes. That's a funny word, coming from people who erased me from the will and pretended I didn't exist. She faltered, her grip on my arm tightening ever so slightly. My father's jaw clenched. "Keep your voice down," he growled. But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I simply smiled, calm and controlled. "Relax. I wouldn't dream of spoiling Emily's fairy tale. But tell me, Dad, do you remember what you called me at my graduation? The ugly graduate who wasn't fit to represent the Carter family?" His expression froze, and for the first time that evening, I saw it. Fear. Not the kind that comes from losing control of a child, but the kind that comes when years of carefully hidden cruelty are about to be dragged into the light. Behind him, I noticed Daniel watching us from across the room, and judging by the confusion and suspicion on his face, I knew he'd heard enough to start asking questions of his own. The tension at our little corner was practically vibrating in the air. But before my father could snap back, Daniel stepped toward us. His expression was polite for the crowd, but his eyes told a different story. Sharp, questioning, unsettled. "Everything all right here?" he asked, looking from me to my parents. My father immediately slipped back into his polished persona. "Of course, Daniel," he said smoothly, "just catching up with Anna. It's been a long time." Daniel nodded slowly, but his eyes didn't leave mine. "A long time, huh? Funny. Emily never mentioned a sister. Not once." I gave him a small, almost apologetic smile. That's because I was inconvenient for their narrative. Emily's hand shot out, clutching Daniel's arm, her nails digging in through his suit. "Daniel, don't listen to her," she whispered quickly, her voice urgent but quiet enough not to draw attention. "She twists things." I arched my brow, meeting my sister's frantic gaze. "Twists things? Or tells the part of the story you've carefully left out?" Daniel's eyes narrowed. "So what's the story then?" My father jumped in, his voice sharp but still controlled. "Anna has always had a tendency toward dramatics. She chose her own path years ago. We respected her decision." I let out a soft laugh, shaking my head. "Is that really the version you're going with?"
Then I chose to disappear? My smile widened, but it didn't reach my eyes. Tell him the truth, Dad. Tell him why you disowned your own daughter. Or should I? For a fraction of a second, his mask slipped, and Daniel saw it. I knew he did, because his grip on Emily's hand loosened, and the suspicion in his face sharpened into something colder. The perfect Carter image was cracking, and I had barely even touched it yet. The MC returned to the microphone, announcing it was time for more toasts. My father visibly relaxed, glad for the distraction. He clapped Daniel on the shoulder, guiding him back toward the head table. But Daniel didn't move. His eyes were still on me, searching, demanding answers I wasn't ready to give away so easily. Later, I murmured softly, just for him. He hesitated, then nodded once before letting Emily drag him away. I returned to my table, but I could feel the weight of eyes following me. Curiosity, whispers, the mysterious older sister who'd appeared out of nowhere and left the bride pale and unsettled. Exactly the effect I wanted. When the waiters cleared plates, my father rose again, glass in hand, his smile as polished as marble. "Family and friends," he began, his voice warm and rehearsed. "Tonight is one of the proudest moments of my life. Seeing my beautiful daughter Emily marry a man as accomplished and honorable as Daniel Hughes fills me with joy beyond words." I clenched my jaw as he continued, piling cliché upon cliché about love, family, and the values we Carters have always stood for. The same man who told me I wasn't worthy of carrying his name was now parading as the embodiment of fatherly love. The room erupted in applause when he finished. And then the MC, smiling wide, made the mistake of asking, "Would anyone else like to share a few words with the bride and groom?" I stood. Gasps rippled through the tables. My father's face drained of color, my mother stiffened, and Emily froze, eyes wide with horror. I walked calmly to the microphone, my heels clicking against the marble floor, and took the glass offered to me. "Good evening, everyone," I began with a smile. "For those of you who don't know me, which is probably most of you, my name is Anna Carter. I'm Emily's older sister." Murmurs swept the hall. Emily's older sister? Why had no one heard of me before? I let the questions hang in the air, savoring the way my father's hand twitched at his side, desperate to silence me. Families are complicated. Some stories get told, others don't. But tonight, I just want to say this. Emily has always been the shining star of the Carter family. And Daniel, I hope you're ready for everything that comes with marrying into a family like ours. The crowd chuckled politely, but I could feel the unease beneath the surface. My words were vague enough to be safe, yet sharp enough to draw blood where it hurt. As I handed back the microphone and walked away, I caught Daniel staring at me with furrowed brows, and Emily with her fists clenched so tightly her knuckles were white. The show had only just begun. It didn't take long. As soon as I left the microphone and returned to my seat, I felt it again, Daniel's eyes on me. He was trying to smile for the guests, but every time Emily turned to greet someone, his gaze drifted back toward me. Curious, uneasy, suspicious. I excused myself under the pretense of needing some air and slipped out toward the balcony. A few minutes later, I heard footsteps behind me. Daniel. He shut the glass door quietly, his expression tense. "Okay," he said, his voice low. "Enough games. What's going on? Why did Emily never tell me she had a sister?" I leaned against the railing, the city lights flickering below. Maybe because sisters complicate fairy tale narratives, especially sisters who don't fit the story. He frowned, stepping closer. "That toast, you said I need to be ready for what comes with this family. What did you mean by that?"
I met his eyes, calm and deliberate. I meant that the Carters care about appearances more than anything else. Image, status, beauty. If you meet the standard, you're in. If you don't, you're disposable. I know that better than anyone. His jaw clenched. So, they pushed you out because of appearances? I nodded slowly. I wasn't good enough. Not smart enough, not pretty enough, not polished enough. At least, not by my father's standards. Emily was perfect. I was the ugly graduate. Daniel froze, processing the words. The ugly graduate? Yes, I said quietly. That's what he called me the night I finished high school. Said I was an embarrassment to the family's image. I heard it with my own eyes. And when I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He told me I didn't fit into their plans. So I left. And they let me. For a moment, Daniel said nothing. His hands gripped the railing, knuckles white. Jesus Christ, that's insane. Before I could answer, the balcony door slid open again. Emily stood there, her smile brittle, her eyes blazing. Daniel, she said, her voice syrupy sweet for anyone who might overhear. The photographer's waiting. Come inside. Then, when her gaze shifted to me, her smile dropped, replaced with venom. Stay away from him, she whispered sharply. But Daniel didn't move. He stayed rooted beside me, torn between the woman he had just married and the sister she had tried so hard to erase.
Emily stepped fully onto the balcony, shutting the door behind her with a sharp click. The music and chatter from inside dulled, leaving only the three of us in the heavy silence. Her smile was gone now, replaced by raw anger. I don't know what your game is, Anna, but you're not going to ruin this night for me. I crossed my arms, steadying myself. Funny, I'm not the one who spent 10 years pretending I didn't exist. That was all you. Emily's jaw tightened. You left. Don't twist it. No, I said firmly, my voice cutting through the night air. I was thrown away. Dad told me to my face I wasn't good enough, and you just stood there, silent, watching. Emily's face flickered. Guilt, shame, then rage. Do you have any idea how hard it was for me to always be the one under pressure, to be perfect, to never slip, to make sure Dad stayed proud? You think I had the luxury of defending you? I blinked, surprised at her sudden crack in the facade. So you admit it. You let them throw me out because you were too scared to lose your crown? Her voice rose, sharp and trembling. You were jealous of me your whole life. Don't pretend otherwise. The attention, the praise, the love. Love? I interrupted, my laugh bitter. You call that love? Living in fear of Dad's approval? Being paraded around like some golden prize? That's not love, Emily. That's control. And you played along, even when it meant sacrificing your sister. Daniel stood between us, stunned, his eyes darting from her to me. Emily, he said slowly, his voice quiet but heavy. Is this true? You knew about all this? Emily swallowed hard, her eyes glistening. Daniel, please, she whispered. It's not what it sounds like. But her words only deepened the silence. For the first time all night, I realized the power wasn't in their hands anymore. It was in mine.
Daniel's face was unreadable. His brows furrowed as he looked at Emily like he was seeing her for the first time. You knew, he said quietly, his voice breaking the silence. All this time, you knew what your parents did to Anna, and you never told me? Emily's eyes filled with panic. Daniel, please, it wasn't my decision. I was a teenager. I didn't know what to do. You knew enough to stay silent, I cut in coldly. You knew enough to enjoy being the perfect daughter while I was erased. Don't act like you were powerless. Silence is a choice, too. Emily turned on me, her voice trembling. Why are you doing this? You've built your life, you're successful, you're obviously fine. Why show up tonight just to destroy me? I stepped closer, my tone steady, my gaze locked on hers. I didn't come here to destroy you, Emily. I came to remind you, and them, that I exist. That no matter how hard you tried to bury me, I survived. I thrived. And now, I'm standing right here, in front of the husband you lied to. Daniel's jaw clenched, his fists tightening at his sides. You should have told me, Emily, before the wedding, before everything. How was I supposed to build a marriage with someone who hides something this big? Emily's composure finally cracked. Her shoulders shook, and for the first time that night, she looked less like the flawless bride and more like a frightened girl. I was afraid. Afraid you'd see me differently. Afraid you'd walk away. Daniel didn't answer right away. He just stepped back, putting a few feet of distance between them. And in that space, I saw it clearly. The first fracture in their marriage. Inside, the DJ announced the next dance, the music swelling again. But out here, on the balcony, the truth had already begun rewriting everything.
When we stepped back inside, the party was in full swing. Laughter, clinking glasses, and music that felt completely at odds with the storm brewing between us. Emily clung to Daniel's arm, her smile forced, while his expression was tight, distant. He was playing along for the cameras, but anyone watching closely could see the tension. I slipped toward the bar, ordering another glass of champagne. It didn't take long before my parents appeared at my side. My father's jaw was set, his tone low and controlled, the way he always sounded when delivering ultimatums. Enough, Anna. You've made your point. Whatever grudge you're holding, let it go. This is Emily's night, and you will not ruin it. I turned, meeting his eyes without flinching. Ruin it? I barely said anything. Maybe the cracks are just showing on their own. My mother leaned in, her voice a strained whisper. Please, Anna, stop this. People are starting to talk. Do you want to humiliate us in front of Daniel's family? In front of Michael Hughes? I smiled faintly, tilting my glass toward her. Oh, you're worried about appearances, as always. Before they could respond, Daniel himself appeared beside us. His sudden presence silenced my parents instantly. He looked straight at me. Anna, could you join me for a moment? I'd like to introduce you to someone. My father stiffened. Daniel, I don't think that's necessary, but Daniel ignored him. He guided me across the room to a table where Michael Hughes, his father, sat speaking with a cluster of guests. Michael looked up as we approached, his brow raised in curiosity. Dad, Daniel said firmly. This is Anna Carter, Emily's sister. For a moment, silence. Michael steadied me, then shifted his gaze toward my father across the room, who looked pale and furious. Sister, he repeated. Interesting. I wasn't aware there was another Carter daughter. I extended my hand with a steady smile. That seems to be a theme tonight. Michael's grip was firm, his eyes sharp, calculating. I could tell in an instant. He already smelled blood in the water. And just like that, my parents' carefully guarded secret wasn't just family drama anymore. It had become public and dangerous.
Michael Hughes didn't let go of my hand right away. His gaze lingered, sharp and assessing, before he finally released it. Strange, he said thoughtfully. I've dealt with your father for years. In all that time, Edward never once mentioned having another daughter. The words sliced through the room like a blade. My father, hovering nearby, stiffened. My mother's smile faltered. Emily's face turned ghostly pale. That's because I was inconvenient, I replied calmly, taking a sip of champagne. I didn't fit the image he wanted for the Carter brand, so they decided it was easier to erase me.
Gasps murmured around the table. Guests leaned closer, pretending not to eavesdrop. Daniel shifted uncomfortably but didn't intervene. He wanted the truth just as much as Michael did. Michael leaned back in his chair, his expression cool but curious. Erased? That's a strong word. It's the accurate one, I said evenly. I was cut out of the family will, out of the company's future, out of every photograph and story they told. 10 years ago, I stopped existing, at least to them. The silence that followed was thick, uncomfortable. My father finally forced a laugh, though it came out brittle. Anna tends to exaggerate. She chose to pursue her own life, and we respected that decision. Michael turned his gaze on him, sharp as steel. Exaggerate, Edward? I've built my entire career on spotting lies, and right now, I don't think your daughter is lying. A ripple of unease spread through the surrounding guests. My father's mask was cracking, and in front of the one man whose opinion mattered most tonight. Emily reached for Daniel's hand desperately, whispering something under her breath, but he pulled slightly away. His eyes stayed fixed on me, filled with questions he clearly wasn't getting answers to from her. For the first time all evening, I felt it, the balance of power shifting. And this time, it wasn't just about family drama. It was about legacy, reputation, empire. Exactly the battlefield my father never wanted me to step onto.
My father's smile faltered, his knuckles white against the glass he was holding. For years, he'd thrived on controlling every narrative, every impression. But here, under the piercing gaze of Michael Hughes and the curious stares of half the room, that control was slipping. "Anna," he said slowly, voice taut, "this isn't the time or place to air old grievances." I tilted my head, meeting his eyes without blinking. "Funny. I thought weddings were all about family. Don't families usually introduce all their children, not just the ones who happen to meet their beauty standards?" A ripple of whispers broke out across the tables. I saw Daniel's jaw tighten, his eyes narrowing as he looked at Emily. She avoided his gaze completely. Michael leaned forward, his elbows on the table, watching every flicker of my father's expression. "Edward," he said smoothly, "I pride myself on transparency. I don't like surprises, especially ones that involve family. If there's something I should know, I'd prefer to hear it directly." My father's mask finally cracked. His voice dropped, clipped, and cold. "You're blowing things out of proportion, Anna. You've always been dramatic, twisting facts to make yourself a victim." The words stung, old wounds reopening in an instant. But I didn't flinch, not this time. I straightened, my voice calm and razor sharp. "Victim? No, Dad. Survivor. You tried to erase me, but I'm still here, stronger than ever. And tonight, I'm not going to let you hide me in the shadows anymore." Gasps echoed through the hall. Emily's face crumpled, her perfect facade cracking, while Daniel's grip on his glass tightened so hard I thought it might shatter. For the first time in my life, my father had no script, no clever line to bury me under. He just stood there, pale, with the weight of 100 stares pressing down on him. And God, it felt like justice.
The ballroom buzzed like a hive. I could feel dozens of eyes flicking between me, my father, and Emily, their perfect illusion crumbling piece by piece. The Carters had always been masters of appearances. Smiles for the cameras, whispered orders behind closed doors. But tonight, the cracks were too wide to patch. Emily finally snapped. "Stop it, Anna," she hissed, her voice louder than she realized. "You don't know when to quit, do you? You just can't stand that this is my night." A hush fell. Guests turned in their chairs, stunned by the outburst. Emily's cheeks burned red, and she quickly plastered on a brittle smile, but the damage was done. Daniel stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the marble floor. His voice was calm, but laced with steel. "Emily, you told me Anna cut ties with the family, that she left by choice. Was that a lie?" Emily froze, her lips parting, searching for words that wouldn't come. My father opened his mouth, ready to step in, but Michael Hughes raised a hand, silencing him. "Let her answer." Michael said firmly. I watched Emily's eyes dart from her husband to her father, then to me. She looked trapped. The golden daughter suddenly stripped of her script. Her voice wavered. I did what I had to. Dad said... She stopped, her throat closing. Daniel's face darkened. So you knew. You knew what they did to her and you went along with it. Emily's mascara-lined eyes filled with tears, but Daniel didn't soften. He turned back toward me, his voice low enough for only our circle to hear. I'm sorry, Anna. You didn't deserve this. Not any of it. And in that moment I realized it wasn't just about my father anymore. Emily's carefully constructed world, her marriage, her shining image, was beginning to fracture right there in front of everyone. Exactly the kind of collapse they had once wished for me.
The rest of the night unfolded in slow motion. Emily tried to recover, dabbing her eyes with a napkin, laughing too loudly at jokes no one made. My father disappeared into hushed conversations with anyone he thought he could still impress. My mother floated like a ghost, her smile frozen but her hands trembling around her clutch. But the guests had seen enough. Whispers spread like wildfire. A sister hidden for 10 years, a family fractured, Emily's perfect image cracking on her wedding day. For once, it wasn't me they were looking at with pity. It was them. I slipped back onto the balcony, needing air. The city lights stretched endlessly, glittering against the dark sky. My chest felt tight, not with anger anymore, but something different, lighter, freer. Behind me, the door opened. Daniel stepped out, his tie loosened, his face etched with conflict. I don't know what's going to happen with Emily and me, he admitted, voice heavy. But tonight, I saw the truth, and I won't unsee it. I nodded. That's all I wanted, the truth out in the open. What you do with it is your choice. He studied me for a long moment, then offered a small, genuine smile. Whatever happens, I'm glad I met you. You're stronger than all of them combined. When he left, I leaned on the railing, breathing in the cold night air. For years, I'd dreamed of revenge, imagined dramatic confrontations, scripted speeches, moments where they'd finally regret throwing me away. Tonight, I'd had all of that, and yet the real victory wasn't their humiliation. It was this. I had walked into that room as the girl they tried to erase, and I was walking out as a woman they could never deny again. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their apologies. What I had was so much better. My own life, my own success, my own freedom. The ugly graduate was gone. I was simply Anna Carter now, and that was enough.